Asheville and Lake County. I'm here today with Trish. Trish, you want to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your title here at SPIRE?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Trish Johnson. I'm the Director of Admissions here at SPIRE Academy in Geneva, Ohio. I've been here almost 3 years now at the Academy and working directly with prospective students, incoming families, for all of the sports and the student athletes that we have that are interested in kind of exploring what this sports academy thing is and if it's a good fit for them.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Trish, for taking the time. So one of my first questions is, can you give me kind of an overview of SPIRE and kind of what makes it unique when it comes to that, getting, like you said, student athletes and that kind of like mix?
Sure. I think one of the unique things is really our philosophy, the way that we approach training student athletes. We look at it as a whole, that we realize that they are students, but they are also athletes. So they require a little bit of a different kind of methodology and philosophy to how you approach their training, their development, both academically and athletically. And I think that's what makes us unique, is really focusing on those philosophies, the methodology, our training, the way that we develop the entire student and take a very holistic approach, from mindset to physical to academic to personal development, because one day sport's going to end. And ultimately, we want them to be able to take the things that they've learned and achieved here and take that on with them throughout the rest of their life.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Like you said, finding that balance.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was a student athlete, not at this caliber, but it's still finding that balance of, like you said, it ends someday.
Yeah.
And you wonder to yourself, like, which direction should I go? How do I even expel that energy that I had as a student athlete? Like, what works for me?
It's hard.
It really is. What types of programs and opportunities are available for students at SPIRE, like athletes? So is there, like you mentioned a little bit about, do you take different classes sometimes just to help those athletes in specific ways? Is there something, that you
so
can
we
talk about?
have, right now we have 8 different sports, both team sports and individual sports, right? And we have athletes in the range of where we call developmental all the way up to elite.
Oh, okay.
So when we are looking at prospective student athletes, it's not necessarily geared towards, are they the best in their sport? Are they national champions? Are they internationally ranked? We don't look at any of that. It's really their passion. What is their passion for that sport? And if they have that passion and this is their goal and their dreams to continue to develop and to be the best they can in that sport, that's what we look for. And I think the interesting thing, being an international boarding school, right? This year we have about 200 students from 38 different countries. So hugely international, which is pretty unique given the size of town that Geneva is, right?
Yep.
So the opportunity for students to come together in a place that they all have the same goals and the same desires. So the mindset, right? They're all trying to achieve the same thing. So they have something in common. And I think one of the things for the local community that sometimes might be not very clear is the fact that we do have day students as well.
Yep.
So we have a lot of students that are from the local community that attend as student athletes here.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
And so we get them from all over the world, all over the US, but also right here in the local Asheville County.
Yeah, and like you said, those students get to kind of support each other too, because it's the same mission. They're like, okay, maybe I want to be an elite swimmer or track, but we can support each other through that process, because it gets hard, definitely for student athletes to focus probably on certain things because there's so much going around outside and stuff. So.
It is. It's and I'm sure you might get to this, but one of the things that makes it unique in the way that we train and kind of help them for that what's next is that it very much mimics a collegiate style schedule, right? So a lot of our student athletes, that's their goal, is to be a collegiate athlete in the US or back home at their home university or semi-professional, professional route, whatever path, is potentially available for them. But their training, their academics, their lifestyle here very much mimics what they would live in that what's next. So it helps them achieve success at a much faster rate.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Yeah. So what is that admissions process a little bit like? So I'm sure you go over the spiel quite a bit. I remember, like I said, working in admissions myself, you get it drilled into your head. So can you give us a little information, especially for those people who, like day students, might be interested in applying?
Ultimately, students find us one of three ways,
Mhm.
usually through agents that are placing them, coaches that are recruiting, or just general. I'm going to look up Sports Academy or a track and field program
Mhm.
or a wrestling program, and they find their way, through Google searches to our doorstep. So from the admissions process, we have admissions managers that specialize in their
Mhm.
sports.
Oh, wow,
So
okay.
they work hand in hand very closely with the coaches to understand what those sport needs are,
Mhm.
kind of what that training is like, what the coaches are looking for. And we get the prospective students and the families connected with those admissions managers
Mhm.
right away so that they can have those conversations. What is the student looking for?
Mhm.
What are their goals? What do they potentially hope to achieve? Interviewing them and also with the coaches. So
Okay.
we get them connected with our coaches right away.
Right away. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
the coaches, because we know that's why they're here,
Yeah,
right? They're here
exactly.
for sport.
Yep.
They want to talk to the coach. They
Yeah.
want to
Where
have that
sometimes in other schools you can't.
interaction.
You can't
Yes,
yet
yes,
connect them with the coach, and they're
yep.
waiting, for
And
the process.
that's really important because we really pride ourselves on being very personalized.
Mhm.
So every student here is known.
Mhm.
People know your name, they know
Mhm.
your sport, they know where you're from, they know your achievements,
Mhm.
right? And it's like a small family,
Mhm.
and we start that from the very
Yeah,
beginning
that's
in that
wonderful.
admissions process. So they work with an admissions manager, they work interviewing with a coach, and then we work with a family throughout the entire process to look at what the affordability is.
Mhm.
Some families think, oh, I can't afford it,
Yes. Yep.
because it is expensive. However, we offer reduced tuition. We have financial aid for families,
Yep.
and I recommend
Mhm.
every family apply because
Yeah,
you
still
just don't
anyways, you
know.
never know. Yep, exactly.
Especially for day students, our day rate is much less than our boarding
Mhm.
rate.
Yeah, you can
So we try to tell families that say, "Oh, I don't know if I could ever afford it." Just try,
yeah,
start the
exactly.
process, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, where is that to her, to see that process through a little
Yep.
bit. So how does SPIRE prepare students for success? So you kind of talked about this, getting ready for college. So there are things, are there specific ways that they kind of help them with that process of if they are wanting to go to college to play a sport, but also academically, maybe they want to do a little bit of both and get a really great degree, but also focus on that sport.
Yeah.
So how does SPIRE prepare
I
them?
think we take a very holistic approach to the student athlete
Yes.
development, right?
Okay,
Because
that's great.
ultimately they're students first.
Yep.
First and
That's what you were
foremost,
saying.
hands down, they're students. That's
Mhm.
the most important thing. But so when we look at their academic progress and the things that we try to set them up for
Mhm.
success, we integrate our academics and our athletics throughout their entire day.
Okay.
So
That's
our
great.
students don't go to school all day and then have 3 or 4 hours of
Yep.
training at night like
Just
most
only that.
traditional high
Yep.
school students do. Our day is integrated. So our wrestlers could have practice at 8 o'clock in the
Mhm.
morning. Our soccer students might have practice at 1 o'clock in the
Mhm.
afternoon, and their academics are woven in
Oh,
throughout their
nice.
day as
That's
well.
really
Again,
nice.
very much like a collegiate
Yep,
style schedule,
exactly.
right? So if you're a college athlete, you might have training at 6 a.m. and then
Yeah,
again at 3, and you've got class somewhere in between there.
for sure.
And so that's kind of one of the ways, but really is focusing on their personal development. So
Mhm.
we have a full-time dedicated college counseling
Oh,
team
nice. Yep.
and a sports psychology team. We call it mindset development.
Mhm. Yep, that's great.
Psychology, there's a lot of
There's
words around
especially
it,
sports.
especially
Yeah,
sports.
related,
Yes,
there's
but
mindset.
it's really more about your mindset.
Yep.
What is your mindset? And everything that they learned there, take the sport piece out of it,
Mhm.
the how to communicate, how to overcome challenges, what's happening when things aren't going right for you in your sport, but how does that also impact your personal life? Because again, right, one day sport's going to end.
Yes, or you could have an injury
An injury, something
instantly.
changes. How
Yep.
are we dealing with that? And so those things, helping them from that mindset perspective
Mhm.
too, that will carry them on
Yeah,
farther down in life than sport ever will.
100%. Yep.
And then the support of, like I said, our college counseling resources and the staff. So every staff member here looks at our students as it's our job to
Mhm.
help them achieve their what's
Yep,
next,
what they're getting to.
whether it's admissions, our mindset development, college counseling, our teachers, our coaches, our resident assistants, house parents. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Everybody looks at those students and says, what's my job to help them be
Yep, and
successful?
they're all on that same page working
All on
together.
the
Yep.
same page.
Which
So
is
I think there's a lot of resources, a lot of help, and we're all
Mhm.
globally focused on the same thing, which is the success of the student athlete.
Yep, makes complete sense. So you did mention Spire attracts students from all over, and a lot of your
Yes.
students are, currently from that area, is like different areas. What kind of support systems are in place for those even students? So, because they may be feeling kind of away from home, not able to see their parents as often. So, kind of, are there special things for them or ways that you kind of work with them?
It it happens. Every student, whether they come from, Europe,
Yep.
Asia, South America, or if they're coming from Ashland, Cincinnati, or,
Yep, just a few hours
Detroit,
away.
Michigan, it doesn't, or right here in Geneva even, right?
Yep.
It's a change. So we all acknowledge that this is different for our students. So we do a lot of professional development training with our staff
Mhm.
to identify when kids are maybe struggling, or we need to build in some more of those resources
Yep.
for those students. So we have internal ways of identifying and communicating that as a whole.
Mhm.
There's a team of
Oh,
people
great.
that we make sure that students are not being falling through the cracks,
Yep.
but they're being identified to how we need to help them. But I think part of it too is the way that they live here is a major support system for the kids. Whether they're day students or they're boarding students, they travel together throughout their day with
Mhm.
their sport, so it becomes very like a small
Like a
family.
family. Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
And we don't try to take the place of the parents, we never will.
Yep.
Right, but how can we be involved with those parents, from communications through the portals that we have, so parents are constantly having access
Because
as
we
to
know
what's
parents
going
have some of
on.
that anxiety.
Parents do have the anxiety.
If Max
Absolutely.
is a lot,
Absolutely.
I
They want to
feed
know
it.
what's going
It's like,
on, right?
for
And so
sure.
the platforms that we use to be able to communicate with our parents, and vice versa. You'll see kids at lunchtime on FaceTime with their parents
Mhm.
because they're 7 or 8 hours ahead. And,
Yeah.
trying to acknowledge, even within their schedule, time for them to be able to have that connection with mom and dad.
Or reminding them you should probably
Reminding
call
them,
mom and dad.
yes,
Right?
yes. We try to also build in breaks. Like, we have
Great.
parents weekends strategically
Oh, that's
about
great.
6 weeks,
Yep.
because we know that's when the homesickness starts to
Yes.
set in. And so we kind of strategically build in these time frames for our students to either go home
Mhm.
and have a break, or for the parents to come here and spend that time with the kids. And it's hard. I mean, I won't, I'm not going to brush
Yeah,
over that
no
fact.
matter
It
what,
is
it's
hard.
just different worlds
This
for some of them
Yeah,
too.
they
Completely.
sacrifice. It's definitely a big sacrifice for the students, but also the families
Yeah.
that they're leaving. And we're not ignorant to that fact. So we try, whether it's in the student life, in the dorms, with teachers, with coaches, to really make sure that we identify, hey, is a student struggling? Do we need to have a conversation? Do we need to just have a break?
Yeah.
Do we need to go do some team building? What are the things that we need to do to make sure that their needs, social and emotional needs, are being met?
Yes, for sure. So together, like, what is one of the most rewarding things to you personally about the job? I know it's probably like it's hard probably to pick one, I'm sure, but what is something that you sticks out? You've been here now for a few years, and like, why are you staying here? You know what I mean? Like, why does
Right.
this make you
It's
be at Spire?
why I stay, and why even it's the kids.
Yeah.
I love the kids.
Love
Our
it.
students are amazing, and to hear their stories, that's what I think I love best
Mhm.
about the admissions, and working with the families, because there's a lot of things that the families and the students will share with us
Mhm.
that they may not share with anybody else when they get here. And it might be a struggle that they've had to go through that's led them to our doorstep. It might be a traumatic event that they share through that process, as to maybe why we're seeing some of the things in the application or transcripts that we're seeing. They share their stories, and they're very personal, intimate stories that they share with us. So we get to know them very well.
Yeah.
And move-in day is my favorite day. It's our whole
So
team's
fun.
like, we live for this day, because it's what we work all year for, right?
Yep.
With these families, we get to know them. We see them on Zoom, and if we have the pleasure of them coming to visit, we'll meet them when they're here. But that there's so much energy and excitement that day, and it's like, this is why we do what we
Yeah.
do. To see the excitement and the joy and the enthusiasm on the students and the families' faces, that, hey, this is a reality, and this is going to change my student's life. I think that is the most rewarding thing, is just getting to know them and their stories,
Yeah.
and then seeing them progress
That
through
progress.
their time,
Yep.
and where they go.
Yeah. Totally.
And knowing
Amazing.
that personal side of them, and then their success, and as they continue to carry that on, to know you had just a little part,
Yep.
right, in their
In that part,
success.
yep.
I kind of joke with a lot of my track and field kids, especially because I used to run track.
Yeah,
So
I love, yep, my
um,
favorite.
they're kind of, it's kind of, we have some inside jokes, but I tell them one day, you know, you're going to be on TV. I'm going to take a picture of you. I'm going to put it on social media and it's going to say hashtag I did that. And it's funny because, you know, I really don't have anything to do
it's
with,
like, yeah, that
right,
process from the
right.
beginning. Like I always joked when I worked in admissions that like I liked it better, like orientation and all that stuff. Not that like when they graduated, you're very happy and proud of them,
Yes.
but that's not your thing. Like
Yes.
you're like, we brought them in here,
Yes.
and it's such a like that process.
It
you
is
know?
very, it is so rewarding. And I mean, especially because our coaching staff is, you look at the pedigree of our
Yes.
coaching staff and it's just off the charts,
Yep.
right? So of course I really don't have anything to do with that, but I think that is really the mindset of our entire admissions team. It's like, hey, we had a little part in helping them get here,
Yep,
and
get
then
here.
that gets them to the next, and seeing their achievements and knowing that they're going to go on to do great and amazing things in sport and out of sport.
Yep.
And to just know them and have that connection with them is really special.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Trish. Do you have anything else to add to the conversation? I feel like we covered quite a
I don't think
bit,
so.
but I really
Come check it out.
Yeah, come
You
check it
never
out.
know.
So on the website, you never know. Like she said, come talk to Trish. Trish is extremely easy to talk to, which you want from an admissions person for
Absolutely.
sure. But I really appreciate it. Like I said, you can come check out even events that happen at
Absolutely.
SPIRE. Anything that's going on at SPIRE, really, you can check out their website. They have a great website for that. But thank you so much again. And I'll talk to you later, Asheville and Lake County.
Bye.